Hey, it's Deb Carr here, and today I'm interviewing David Ditchfield. Let me tell you a little bit about David. His story is quite astonishing. In 2006, David Ditchfield was dragged under a speeding train in a freak accident. As the surgeons fought to save him, he had a profound near death experience, NDE, as we refer to near death experiences. When he woke up in hospital, he had acquired astonishing new abilities. He found he could paint dramatic paintings of what he had seen in the afterlife, far beyond any artistic ability he had before. He then also discovered he could compose classical music, having never received any training. So here today we're going to talk to David about his accident and what he discovered in the afterlife.
And I was getting through life basically picking up manual labouring work most of the time. So it was all like sort of like, you didn't know whether you were going to be working one day to the next, but it was all a game of hustling for work. And I actually found that I wasn't that great at doing that line of work either. I was watching all these other guys at the job and I just thought, wow, they're very skilled at their job and what they were doing. And I never felt that I could fit into that or just get a grasp on it or get a hold on it. So life was always really, like for a lot of us, it was a struggle. But living in London as well, particularly, it felt more, I don't know, there was like a mirror holding up to me all the time because I was surrounded by a lot of people who were successful. And a lot of those people were my friends. I befriended people who were working in the music industry and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, I just want to be doing what they're doing. They're not academic and I'm not academic. And I thought, why not me? But that door was never going to really open for me. So I got to the stage where I was running out of work and I was running out of money. And I was drinking heavily as well, because that was my way of dealing with anything that went wrong. Any adversity was like, right, let's go and have a drink. And so the two didn't go too well. Running short of money and spending it on alcohol don't mix. So that's pretty much where I was at really in my life. Yeah.
And then you were one day. I know I've read your book obviously, and I read it basically in one day. You were on a train station saying goodbye to a girlfriend, and your coat got caught in the doorway. Tell us about that moment and what went through your head. What was happening?
Yeah. Yes, the coat got caught in the automatic closing doors, and I was surprised because I thought I'd be able to pull it out, but it just wasn't going to come. And I tugged as hard as I could. It was like a very thick quality, like sheepskin coat I was wearing, so it wasn't going to come out. So I yelled for help, and there was no guard or anything on anybody on the platform working. And so I thought, this isn't looking good. So I started banging on the windows of the carriage. Nobody came through. And at this point, the engine started to rev up, and I just looked through the glass. I could see my friend Anna, who I was seeing off, and I just saw the look of absolute horror in her face, because she was terrified. That made me feel even more sort of terrified at that point. And I thought, I didn't think I was going to survive it, to be honest with you. When those engines started revving and I was stuck, I thought, I'm going to get pulled under. So it started edging out of the station. And as it edged out of that station, I lost my footing because it went very, very fast. They really accelerate at great speed. You don't realize at all. You don't think about it, basically, do you? How fast a train pulls out of a station. But when you're attached to the outside of it, you do. And I ran with it, and then I lost my footing, and I got dragged along the platform at great speed, and then I got pulled between the edge of the platform and then the train itself, and then I got sucked under and went right under. And it was like being thrown into this kind of like dark, sort of horrible, violent metallic machine. I was just tossed around relentlessly like a rag doll. And I was like determined to survive this as well. I went into fight or flight mode, and it was like, I don't know what it was. I felt like it was me against this huge mechanical beast all of a sudden. It didn't feel like a train anymore, And I was eventually thrown down to the ground as the train was still continuing on at great speed. And I just kept my head right down. I was laid between the tracks, and I was my face was in the gravel. I could smell the oil and everything. I can still remember to this day. And I thought it's still not over yet. Something could come and whack me over the back of the head, and that would be it, and it would all be over. But obviously that didn't happen, and the train eventually moved off down the track, and there I was. Yeah.
You did everything go in really slow motion? Like I've heard that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't so much slow motion. Everything felt, but time stretched. Which I didn't realise actually until afterwards, because the National UK Rail Police did a massive inquiry on it, and I said, "How long did it take?" The whole accident, and they timed it, and he said it was 13.5 seconds from the time that the train pulled out and you were under. I was going, "No, are you sure?" I said it was minutes, wasn't it? I'm sure it felt like minutes, So I actually saw a documentary recently with a guy called David Eagleman, who's an American scientist, like a neuroscientist, and he said that this happens a lot with people in situations like me, where they're facing death. They're looking it in the eyes, if you like, and it's almost like he described it as being like going from having a video camera sort of view of life to having this huge multiplex cinema screen. And you can see everywhere. He was absolutely right. I took in everything all around me. But not only that, I had time to think it all through. I remember thinking to myself, as the train was just about to pull out, I thought, what about that news item you saw the other week where I'd seen where a small child had been thrown from a burning tower block 3 floors up and had survived without any broken bones? And they said the reason being was because children they're relaxed, their limbs are totally relaxed. Unlike adults, we tense up. So I thought, right, relax, just go with it, which I did, and I totally relaxed as I got pulled under. So yeah, so that it wasn't slow motion, but it was stretched. Time was stretched. Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember once I was behind a car and it hit a lamppost and spun around, and it went in, everything, like you said, it was all really slow motion. To me, it was like, and I never hit the car, but I'll never forget that. It was years ago. So how old were you?
There you go. Well, there you go. You see, so you were in danger. So
Yeah.
yourself, because your mind was telling you that you could die at this moment in time. So that time stretched out, and as I say, it's really amazing how the mind works, because this is what I'm learning all the time now, that we don't know. We know hardly anything about how the mind works. I mean, I know one thing is that my mind and body should not have gone through that, what it did do. It was an awful lot to deal with, and I understand what post-traumatic stress disorder is all about now, because I suffered from that as well. And that is because we're not meant to go into combat like that. We're not meant to really deal with those scenarios and survive them. So
Yeah, and so when you're lying on the train track, right, and you realise this has just happened, and I know you had some very bad damage to your arm. What was the pain like? Like, how do you cope with that?
Yeah, well, the pain was really immense. Yeah, it was incredible pain. But I was obviously in shock as well. And I remember just trying to check to see what had happened. I saw this coat, this lovely sheepskin coat I talked about, was now shredded completely. And I could see my arm was exposed as well. My arm had been severed from the elbow down. And I could see all the workings in my arm, and it was just like, it was interesting because, again, I didn't freak out. I kind of remember looking and thinking, wow, that's me. That's all my internal workings in my arm. I could see everything. I could see all the nerve endings and the muscles and everything. I was fascinated by it, which sounds strange, but that's the way it was. And then the emergency guys arrived really quick. They jumped down on the track and they kind of started working on me. They were cutting through my clothes, and they somehow got me off the track and into the back of an ambulance. And then when we got in, the doctor turned around and said to me, "Look, there's a hospital round the corner, but the one that's really going to save you is about a 20-minute drive away. Can you do it?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go. Let's hang on and let's go." And so we took off like a rocket down the highway. And we arrived at the hospital, and there was like a team of medics who were all waiting there for me. And I just saw them in this big semicircle. And there seemed to be an awful lot of tension as I was wheeled in. The doctors sounded very nervous because I was losing this blood, and I could see my arm was in a bad way. It had been ripped off. And I just thought, even at that point, I didn't even know whether I was going to survive. So I was scared. And then my family arrived, and they got there really quick, which was really amazing. So they came in one by one to see me, and then they were there. My mother, I remember her being in tears, and it was interesting because I turned around to her and said, "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. It's always me bringing all the dramas to this family, because that's how I always felt. My life was always to me, felt like it was one of failure, and so anyhow." She said, "That's simply not true, and it's not your fault, So anyway, that was that. And Anna, who I'd been seeing off, arrived as well. So she was there. I was really desperate to talk to her because I needed to connect with her because we'd just been through this ordeal together. I knew that she'd seen the whole thing unfold. And she, poor thing, she ran through the train and saw me go under. And she said to me afterwards, interestingly enough, she said, when you went under, she said, you rolled under with such grace. She said, I know that sounds weird. I said, no, it's not weird, because then I explained what happened, that I remembered the news item and I relaxed. So it was pretty much at that point that I left my body. I went from all that frantic sort of pain and agony and complete sort of high intensity of fear and anxiety to what appeared to be a very beautiful, warm and darkened room. And but it wasn't like a foreboding darkness. It was like a really comforting darkness.
Wow. And how is it dark, comforting? Can you explain a bit more?
Well, in as much as if you think about it, if you suddenly left your body and you're you've just been through all this already, and then you're suddenly in a place that is dark, then it could be frightening. It could be foreboding. And not only that, to be honest with you, straight away at that point, I figured that I hadn't made it. I thought I was dead. I thought this is the afterlife, and I haven't made it through. But I didn't fight it. I didn't want. It's not like I didn't want to live, but I because I felt so comforted in this space, I was keen to sort of just see where I was and what was going to take place next. And I was almost greeted by these kind of like beautiful lights. They were like orbs that were just slowly pulsating all around me, and they were just kind of like almost like landing lights in an airport, but they were just slowly pulsating. And I felt really comforted by that and not scared. So I tried to get my bearings a bit to see where, what was going on. And one of the first things I noticed was that I was no longer lay on like a hospital trolley or what have you, or bed. I was now laid on like this kind of like slate rock. It's like a big sort of medieval altar, and I thought, wow, this feels really comfortable to lie on, even though it's rock and slate, which normally you would think, no way, But so I laid my head back, and as I lay back, I just kind of like started to relax, and I realized that there were like 3 grids of white light that were closing in on me. And I looked straight into that white light because it was kind of healing me. I felt, it felt like there was a healing energy coming from that light. It was very powerful. And I couldn't take my gaze away, even though it was very bright and intense. Normally I wouldn't be able to look into that kind of light, but here I could. So I just kind of looked into those grids, and then I just felt myself go into a state of like total relaxation. And as I lay there kind of bathed in this beautiful sort of energy, I suddenly felt the presence of somebody close to me. I thought that somebody else has kind of arrived on the scene, as it were. So I lifted my head slowly, and there was a person who was just stood at the end of my feet, who was neither male nor female, wearing like a very simple black T-shirt, nothing too ethereal, just a simple black T-shirt with this beautiful white blonde hair and this skin that was glowing light from within. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was just a glow that seemed to again radiate this love that was coming towards me. And not only that, the expression on this person's face was like a knowing smile, a comforting. I felt guarded, like this was the guardian to my soul, if you like, And not only that, I felt that I knew this person. I thought, I know you, don't I? I know your face, and I know your everything about you. You know me, don't you? Who are you? You know. And he or she just kept smiling back at me. So I decided to continue to lay back, and well, I wanted to check my wounds, to check my body, to see how everything was looking. And when I did, it was like I was no longer wearing clothes, but I was just covered in this blue sheet and this satin sheet. But I looked, and everything was back intact. You know, there wasn't a simple scratch or bruise. My whole body looked completely healed, and it looked very at peace with itself as well.
Did it feel heavy, your body? Like, what did your body feel like in that state?
It's interesting because it felt like it was me that was there. It was me as I'm sat here talking to you now. So I was very aware that it was me, but there was a difference. What I noticed, that not only was my body healed physically, but all the anxieties that I'd carried with me, all those feelings of guilt that I talked about earlier, and failure, and all those things, they're gone. They didn't exist anymore. I'd forgotten them. I didn't worry about the past anymore and past mistakes, and I stopped worrying about the future. You know, and I didn't even worry about what was going to happen to me next. I was just in the moment, and I was just, so it was me, but it's a different sphere as well. So it's like a place that's ultra real, but it's different from where we are now. So there's many connections. You know, you feel that there's a sense of you, but you're not actually. There's no gravity. You're not on Earth. You know, in fact, even though I was laid on this rock, I suddenly realized that I was actually in space itself. I was in the universe. You know, I wasn't in a small darkened room. You know, that was like one of the things that I noticed. Yeah.
I've read a lot of people say that they're actually in the universe, and it might, even myself, I haven't had a near-death experience, but I had an anesthetic, and as I was waking up from that, I had been in the universe and I had met God, and I knew everything, but I wasn't allowed to bring it back. I can remember I knew at the time. So also, so you did you have a life review? I've read that a lot of people actually go through their life and review it. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I didn't do, actually. No, that didn't happen to me. I mean, everybody's near-death experience is different, and some people's. I've read about people who've had life experiences, and the ones that I've read about, I can only comment on those. They're normally their cases have been ones where that they haven't actually been that good to other people in their life, for example, and so their life review is kind of like they're experiencing the hurt that they're given to others. And I'm not trying to say that I'm an angel or anything like that, because I'm not. There'll be plenty who would turn around and say, "Whoa, hang on a sec, I remember you." But I think, generally speaking, in the grand scheme of things, the one person that I was really giving a hard time to throughout the whole of my life was me. You know, it was me. I was the one I was beating up myself. So I kind of figured that rather than having a life review, it was basically the lesson that I was being given was self-love, was to love me, you know, to sort of give myself a break and to learn that actually I'm okay, you know, and that to try and find that self inner love, you know, which is something that I continued when I came back, you know, it's still a lesson that I'm constantly learning. Yeah.
So you're in this space, obviously, and you've come back. Obviously, you've come back. Did they say to you, "I'm sorry, you can't stay. You're going back"? And did you fight that, or did you just wake up?
No, I mean there were various stages of the near-death experience that happened, and the final stage of it was the most profound one, which is when I saw a tunnel of white light. And I know that you'll probably know this yourself, that many people who've had near-death experiences do see the tunnel of white light, and some people go through it. But for me, I just saw it, and it was just such an awe-inspiring experience, because it was huge and it was very powerful, and it was surrounded by all these flames that were slowly sort of rotating all the way around. And the energy that was coming from that white light was just so intense. It was just like an energy of love. It was like unconditional love that was like, it was causing every single molecule of my body to vibrate with this love. And I knew at that stage that what I was looking at was the source of all creation. You know, this was God, if you like. This is not, you know, the usual God that we're normally used to seeing in human form, you know, whether it's Christianity with the God with the beard in the sky or what have you, you know, it's this tunnel of white light. And that's what I saw. And that was the most profound moment. When I saw that, that was such a huge realization that I remember just lying back with my head and I was kind of almost laughing with sheer joy at that point. And that was the point that I came back. And I guess looking back on it, you know, that they decided that it was time for me to come back because I gained what I needed to gain. I'd learned what I needed to learn at that stage. I mean, the learning process continues. It still does. You know, I'm still gaining energy and information through now. You know, and we all do. But for me, that was the stage they sent me back. Yeah, it wasn't my choice; it was theirs.
Were you cross when you came back? Were you cranky that you were back in the body?
No, I wasn't actually. No, because I was so filled with all this energy of pure love that I'd still got it within me. I still felt like I was attached to that other side. I felt like I'd got for quite some time throughout all the weeks in hospital recovering. I felt like this energy was still very much a part of me that was a part of that place. And far from feeling that, I just felt excited. I thought, wow, that was incredible. I can't wait to tell the world about this, you know. And I thought, how am I going to tell everyone? And what is my purpose? I thought, why have they sent me back? That's what all I could think. They've sent me back for a reason. And what is my purpose? So yeah, I knew nothing about near-death experiences at all. So I was quite ignorant to it all. And I just figured I was the only person that this had happened to, you know. So I thought, how am I going to tell the world without them thinking that I'm totally crazy? Yeah.
No, millions of people have had them. And there's the organisation, I think it's nderf.org. I don't know if you've been on their website, but it's fascinating. So I've read, as I said, many stories on near-death experiences. So now you've come back, you obviously have to rehabilitate and get your arm working again, and you go through that. And I really do, again, encourage people to read your book because it's a fascinating story.
Thank
you.
So
from going through all that, and let's just fast forward the recovery bit, you start to paint, and you've never painted in your life. So, and one of your paintings you described before, the light. So that painting that I've seen is the light with all the flames going around it. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I've done a few with that ton of white light. Yeah, with the flames going around. Yeah.
So how does somebody who doesn't know how to paint or has never painted in their life, what happened?
Well, basically what happened was I decided pretty much soon on that I was going to do this painting because, like I said, I thought, how am I going to tell the world about this? And I thought, I'm going to paint. That's how I'm going to do it. And I wanted to paint something really, I wanted to paint like a big Michelangelo style Renaissance painting, because those are the ones that I thought they're the ones who tell the story of all, you know, sort of biblical themes. I wanted it to be like that. And nothing was going to stop me, I guess. So I got a canvas together, and once I was well enough to start painting, I was apprehensive to start with, but once I started painting, it was amazing how it started coming together, and it started happening pretty soon in. And I would stop at the end of each day, and I'd go, "Wow, I'm getting helped here." And I thought, "You're helping me, aren't you?" Because I would speak to the other side and say, "You're giving me help." So I knew that I was channeling ideas through to give me like a crash course, if you like, on how to put paint onto a canvas, how to bring color out in skin tones and all things like that. You know, before I would have just thought, well, you know, here's a skin tone color and that's it. But now I thought I was suddenly splashing on greens and yellows and blues and all sorts of colors onto, and then I thought, wow, that's making the skin look three-dimensional, just so on. And then it just became, that very first painting became almost like everything that I wanted to put in there, what I'd seen. And not only that, I was encouraged because I started painting at this place. Some friends of my sisters run a Pilates yoga center, and they said, look, why don't you come and we've got a spare studio upstairs that's available for a week. You can use it to start your painting. So I said, that's great. So I started it there. And I got to the end of that week, and obviously I wasn't going to finish it at all. I'd only just started. But they said, you can stay. It's okay. We'll move around you. You know, we want you here. This is really good, important that you're doing this. So they were really supportive. And I ended up staying there for 2 years, you know, free of charge. They never charged me. It's amazing, isn't it? But what was great was a lot of people coming in for the yoga and Pilates groups used to come upstairs and see me. You know, I was called the artist in the attic. And so they would chat about my painting. I'd say, what is it? So I talk about it. So it helped me to sort of bring it out and say what had happened. And then suddenly, the more I talked about it, the more that painting started to come together. And before I knew it, I'd finished it, and there it was. And I just kept going from there on.
This is the one with the arm, with your arm torn. Is that
that's the second one, actually. Yeah,
so that light.
Yeah, the first one I did is one that you described earlier with a tunnel of light, and then I'm laid out in front of it. So that's the very first painting that I did. That one you talked about there with the arm, that was me wanting to express coming from the darkness of that horrific accident into the light, if you like. And I wanted to put that into one painting. But not only that, I needed to also, like I said, I had post-traumatic stress disorder. So I wanted to try and process that whole accident in a painting as well. So that's what that was about. I wanted to show, you know, what it's like, that horror at the bottom pit of it all. And then again, I was channeled because I didn't know how I was going to take myself from that. I started off painting that bit at the bottom of the track, and then my arm ripped open, and then suddenly I found that the tidal wave was starting to appear in this painting. I sat back one day, I thought, that looks like a tidal wave. I thought, that's it. That is brilliant. It's taking me out from the darkness, and all the colors will come out into the tidal wave, into the beautiful blue sky, you know, and then the healing light. And so that came about through a lot of help, that one.
Yeah, and you've captured the being that wasn't female or male in the black t-shirt perfectly. Like that's it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
done that. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's for people that haven't had a near-death experience like you. It's good because we can kind of see what we're in for later. You know?
Yeah.
So then, if that wasn't enough, become an artist, you also became a composer.
Yes, that came along afterwards. Yeah. Well, basically, what happened was I started going for spiritual healing because I knew that there was a spiritual church near the town where I was recovering in Cambridge, and I thought they'd probably get what had happened to me, and I wanted to try and chat with people about it, you know, and they did. And they were very helpful. And they said, look, we do spiritual healing here. So I started having that, and it helped me with my physical recovery and my mental recovery, you know. And in some of those healers, they're clairvoyant, and they would like pick up messages, just short ones afterwards, and they'd say, oh, you know, I saw, like, you know, beautiful blue healing light and what have you. But they started saying, a few of them would say, oh, you know, why am I seeing a violin, and why am I hearing Beethoven and Wagner and stuff? I was going, I have no idea, you know. And then one of them said, you're going to write a piece of music about your experience, is what they're telling me. And I think, great, okay. So I went home and I got this old cheap synthesizer, you know, up in the loft or what have you, and I got that out, and I started playing around on that, trying to bring something together. And nothing was happening, and then it came to me like in a dream state. I heard these this little chord progression, very simple one, just 3 chords. And I thought, I'm going to record that. All I got was like this kind of little dictaphone that belonged to my brother-in-law, you know, and I just recorded it on this cheap synthesizer. And those were the opening chords that were to become my first symphony. And it just kind of evolved from there. I had that same ambition as I did with the painting, that I thought if I can nail those paintings, this should be played by an orchestra, and why not? You know, I got this kind of real sense of, yeah, it can be done. And one of the people who used to come into the yoga center and watch me paint was a cello player, and she became friends with me, and she said, what's going on with you at the moment, you know? And I told her about this new piece of music. I said, it sounds like it should be played by an orchestra. And she was going, oh, maybe we could perform it one day, you know, and laughed. And I thought, I'm going to hold you to that. So I just kind of like kept working at it. Now my brother, he lives in London, and he's classically trained, and so he said, look, I've got this old laptop you can have, and you can use it. It was an old computer, actually. It was really old. And he said, but it's got some software attached to it. And he said, when you're playing the notes on your synthesizer, it can transpose it into music format, so that the orchestra members can read it. So I thought, brilliant. So that's how that came together, because I still can't read or write a single note of musical notation, but I know how to play the parts in, and I hear them, and I hear horns and different sounds, and it all just kind of developed from there. And yeah, that was amazing. I remember going to the first rehearsal, and obviously I walked through the door with a sense of confidence, but also when I walked in, it was quite foreboding to see this kind of like big orchestra sat there, and they're very highly educated, middle-class musicians. And I thought, oh my God, I'm way out of my depth here, and but when those opening chords came in on that very first movement, those first three chords that I told you about, hearing it played by an orchestra was just the most magical experience. It worked instantly, and I thought, wow, that's exactly what I heard. And it was just, it was beautiful, beautiful moment. Yeah.
Beautiful music. So you've done that. So now you're artist, you're a composer, and you've now written a book, obviously.
Yes, that's right.
With dyslexia, that's not an easy thing to do. So obviously you had a co-writer.
That's right, yeah.
Janet, no?
J.S. Jones.
J.S. Jones, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the story, you go into great detail reading. So I've read the book, obviously. You go into a lot of detail what's happened. Mm-hmm. What's next? What's next for that? What else can you do?
Yeah, what else can I do? Well, to be honest with you, it's been quite a roller coaster of book promotion since this book came out. It came out in June 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, and I didn't even know which way it was going to go, with all that happening. I didn't worry about it because, like all of us, I was more concerned with what was going on in the world, and our planet and everyone's health. But thankfully, I was able to communicate via Zoom, like I'm doing with you now, and do lots of interviews. And so it's been steadily growing, and just the energy's just been picking up and everything. So that's been lovely. And what the next stage for me is that I want to put my music out so that people can buy it, because at the moment I've got that first symphony that I talked about. You can stream that on my website and hear it, through SoundCloud. But I'm surprised how many people have actually turned around to me and said, "But yeah, we want to be able to buy your music, so I can just put it on when I'm in my car and stuff." And so that's the next stage. Yeah, so I'm going to be releasing that music plus other symphonies and other pieces of music that I've written as well. So that's going to be the next bit. Yeah.
It's incredible. It's an incredible story, and I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing it with us.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
I really wish you all the very best. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more, and I can't wait for your music to be wherever, Spotify or wherever.
Great. Thanks very much. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.